billion-dollar bridges with no traffic, massive places with empty rooms, and airports that ended up abandoned. These bank-breaking megaprojects were supposed to be epic, but instead ended up being a complete waste of money. From bad locations to bad budgeting, why did these construction projects end up failing so spectacularly? We're about to find out. Rusky Bridge. Let's begin with the world's longest cable-stayed bridge. It also happens to be one of the world's most useless bridges. Russia's Rusky Bridge is one of the largest bridges in the entire world. It looks impressive, but there's one problem. It connects Vladivostok to Rusky Island, where there's a population of less than 6,000 people. The $1.1 billion bridge was part of a larger $20 billion project to prepare Russia for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in 2012. While there was ferries and other transportation options available to get to the island, Russia insisted on the bridge. It ended up being 6,184 feet long, with its central cable-suspended section spanning 3,622 feet. When the expensive bridge was first finished, it didn't even lead anywhere. The road coming off the bridge to the island was actually a dead end. In general, the island's roads are pretty undeveloped. There's only 12 to 19 miles of asphalt, while the rest remain unpaved. Even though the bridge had a 50,000 vehicle per day capacity, today it sees no more than a couple of thousand cars and tour buses. Numerous luxury hotels and even a university campus were built on the island for the summit, but any further construction has mostly stopped. With the Ukrainian-Russian war still going on, it's unlikely more work will be done anytime soon to make the billion-dollar Rusky Bridge a worthwhile investment. Ciudad Real Central Airport. Location can make or break a mega project. Ciudad Real Central Airport in Spain was supposed to be the country's next big travel hub, but choosing a remote location was a very costly mistake. Ciudad Airport opened in 2009 at a cost of over $1 billion. With a single 13,400-foot-long runway, it was intended to take on some of the passenger load from Madrid-Barajas Airport and improve travel time and airport congestion. Its passenger terminal was designed to handle 2 million passengers per year, with a planned expansion that would have increased its capacity to 10 million passengers. Unfortunately, Ciudad was located about 136 miles away from the airport it was trying to help, which made it very inconvenient. It ended up hosting only low-cost carriers, Ryanair and Vueling, with one of them completely subsidized by the Spanish government. After attracting very few companies and making no money, the airport ended up closing just 3 years after opening. Then came the issue of deciding what to do with the expensive but useless building. At one point, it was auctioned off for just over $10,000, but the Spanish government ended up rejecting that winning bid because it was insanely low. After years of empty facilities falling into disrepair, the airport finally sold for about $57 million and was reopened in September 2019 as an aircraft maintenance and storage center. While it's not the high-traffic money-making airport it was meant to be, at least it's still being used for something. Mayawati parks and statues. Airports and bridges are the kind of things that come to mind when you think of a mega project. But this next $1.3 billion investment can also technically be classified as a mega project, even though it's basically just a vanity project made up of many expensive decorations. As India's chief minister for varying periods since 1995, Mayawati decided to spend billions commemorating India's most prominent politicians, including herself. She began a $1.3 billion project to revive public parks by constructing hundreds of statues of elephants and Indian politicians. These elaborate art pieces appear all over the place, but have drawn a lot of criticism for being basically useless. The Supreme Court of India said in 2019 that Mayawati should pay back all the public money spent on the project. She argued that the project was still the will of the people and that the statues would attract tourists who would spend their money while visiting. But it's pretty clear to see that in a country suffering from poverty, spending $1 billion on decor just isn't a good look. UK Navy aircraft carriers. This next mega project was supposed to be incredibly useful, but sometimes expectations and reality just don't match up. When the British Navy decided that their current fleet was becoming obsolete, they commissioned 2 new aircraft carriers that ended up reaching a combined cost of $7.5 billion, more than double the original budget. The HMS Queen Elizabeth and HMS Prince of Wales were meant to do things the old fleet couldn't. They're over 930 feet long and are bigger and more modern than almost every other flat-top top in the world. They're only beaten by the US Navy's nuclear-powered supercarriers. The new carriers were designed to carry 40 military aircraft plus equipment, but there's one major problem. Having blown billions building the ships, the government can no longer afford the amount of aircraft or weapons that the ships were meant to carry. To make matters worse, they can't afford to protect them properly with escorts and support ships. It's expected that these expensive ships could easily be disabled by enemy missiles. The ships also can't be modified to support amphibious landings, which was one of the biggest justifications for cutting the UK's existing carriers. Now critics are saying that the entire project has been a huge waste of money. As costs rise and budgets shrink, more of the Navy's resources are being shoveled into the ships, yet they continue to be a massive disappointment. Palace of the Parliament, Romania. This next mega project is monumental. So monumental that people say it can be seen from the moon. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but the Palace of the Parliament in Bucharest is one of Romania's most iconic buildings, and it's the second largest administrative building in the world after the Pentagon. It also holds the record for the heaviest building in the world. However, even with all those accomplishments, it's one of the planet's most useless buildings. The palace was commissioned by dictator Nicolae Ceausescu in 1984. Sections of the city were completely demolished to make room for the 3.9 million square foot building. Ceausescu was executed in 1989, but work on the palace continued. Construction stopped in 1997 after the project had reached a total cost of about $4 billion in today's money. It's estimated that thousands of people died while working on the massive building. As of today, the palace is still somewhat unfinished. There are only 400 of 1,100 rooms in use, but it does have some pretty amazing features. For example, there's a nuclear bunker underneath the building linked to a 12-mile network of tunnels. But despite some awesome elements, the palace is still almost entirely useless. Only 30% of the building is still in use, and heating alone costs $6 million per year. With maintenance costs like that, critics think it's time to sell or finally find a worthwhile purpose for the record-breaking building. The Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. Now it's time for another record breaker. The Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge is the world's longest sea-crossing bridge. Officially opened in October 2018, the bridge cost about $20 billion and connects Hong Kong with Macau and the Chinese city of Zhuhai. It's 34 miles long and includes a submerged tunnel. Seems pretty useful, right? Well, it actually isn't. And that's partially because of all the rules motorists have to follow to be able to cross the bridge. They have to apply for a permit and pass things like vehicle checks, driver checks, and insurance requirements. The 2020 pandemic caused border closures that left the bridge unused for years. In the latest news from January 2023, the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge can only accommodate about 1,000 travelers using private cars and cross-boundary car-for-hire services. It's unfortunate that the bridge is used so infrequently because it was incredibly difficult to build. Its location is often hit by typhoons, and because of its length, multiple artificial islands had to be created for border control and maintenance stations. However, a low-quality cement was used to cut costs, which has caused some of the artificial islands to disintegrate or drift away. Add in worker deaths, falsified stress tests, and environmental concerns, and the bridge's problems just keep racking up. It's now expected that the bridge will never recover its cost of construction. It's estimated to have a short 80-year lifespan, and another bridge is being built just 18 miles away. Now, the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge is considered one of the biggest wastes of money in the world. Are there any other money-wasting mega projects you'd like us to make a video about? Let us know in the comments. Like this video and subscribe for more true stories behind the world's most iconic construction projects. Thanks for watching.